Hello, ghouls and gamers, and of course, my fellow rejects. Today's video, I'm going to be covering the skills, feats, and my personal build that I use for the Ogryn Skullbreaker. It's going to be a pretty lengthy video, so I will put timestamps in the video description. So if you're only here for a certain part of the video, then like if you're only here for the feats, then you can go ahead and skip ahead to that. If you're only here for my build, then that'll be the last part of the video, and that'll all be in the description for you. So, starting off, we're going to go over the skills. So, first off, the Blitz is the grenade for the Ogryn is Big Box of Hurt, which pretty much he the the Ogryn just grabs a crate of grenades and slings it at the enemy. It's very single target, doesn't even explode unless you get the feat for it, but we'll get into that later. It does do a pile of damage, but only to that guy. And usually, I ain't gonna lie, I don't use this very often. It's about the only time I use it is if I can get a good shot on the Beast of Nurgle. I can throw it into his weak spot. I'll use it. Other than that, I don't actually use Big Box of Hurt very often, but it does do a pile of damage if that's what you're looking for. The aura is Intimidating Presence. The Ogryn and everybody in coherency with him gets a 10% heavy melee attack bonus. So everybody's heavy attacks hit harder. Everybody who's around the Ogryn, including the Ogryn himself. The special is Bull Rush. Charge forward. You knock everything down in your way. I will say you gotta be a little careful with it because sometimes you'll get yourself way out of position if you charge too far. But at the same time, it's super useful for knocking down some enemies, staggering some big bosses, especially like you can stagger the Plague Ogryn. You can stagger any elite. Heck, you can even stagger the Demon Host with this thing. I mean, it is very effective for that. Also, it gives you a 25% attack speed and a 25% movement speed for 5 seconds, which also comes in handy. Something people should know about this is when you're charging forward with the Ogryn's Bull Rush, you can pull back if you pull back on your S key or your pull back on your directional if you're using controller, or re-hit the button that you use to activate Bull Rush. You should cancel your Bull Rush. So if you only want to go just a short distance and knock down a few enemies, you can do that without getting yourself out of position. Thick Skin is Ogryn passive. It is 20% toughness damage reduction and 20% health damage reduction. Just straight up, you're harder to hurt. Just naturally. 25% melee stagger. Your melee attacks just stagger better. And Loyal Protector. Being damaged while reviving or assisting allies no longer interrupts you. A lot of people don't seem to know this, but this is super handy, especially to go with the fact that you're already super hard to kill. You can just pick up your allies without being interrupted. From what I've gathered, it also works for like the Trapper, the electric net. I've never been interrupted trying to pick up somebody out of that. It's a fantastic tool. And that is the skill portion of this video. So, moving right along into feats, we have our level 5 feats, which we have Linchpin is 100% toughness replenishment when you're in coherency. It doubles your coherency replenishment. I don't personally use this one. I can see an argument for using it. It does. It's good, but it's not going to really help you in the heat of combat. So I mean, it's a pretty good feat though. The next two is the ones I would suggest actually using. You got Smash 'em Good, which is replenish 20% toughness on a single enemy hit with a heavy attack. The best form of defense is 20% toughness when hitting multiple enemies. To me, there is rarely a time where I'm hitting only one enemy. Even when I'm fighting against elites or whatever I may be fighting against. I mean, Plague Ogryn's probably the only thing that, or perhaps Demon Host if we end up fighting it. But usually I'm tanking that with my slab shield. Most of the time, you're going to hit extra things on accident, if nothing else. So to me, this is just the best one. And that 20% is pretty big, honestly, especially if you get some other stuff to go with toughness regeneration on your curios. But if you are a player who does find yourself one-on-one fairly often, hitting just one target with your melee attacks, then Smash 'em Good would be a better option for you. I guess that really boils down to playstyle. Like I said, if you end up in that situation pretty often, then Smash 'em Good would be a better option for you. 20% is a pretty good chunk of toughness, especially in the heat of combat. Which is why I like these two better, because I feel like these two work in the heat of combat. This one is good. But moving on from that, we have our level 10 feats. Heavyweight is plus 50% melee damage against Bulwarks, Crushers, Plague Ogryns, and Reapers. It's also 50% damage reduction from Bulwarks, Crushers, Plague Ogryns, and Reapers. This move is great. I mean, it's honestly fantastic. It's probably the best you can get when you hit level 10. I would suggest everybody using this when you hit level 10. I'm not using it, but that's because there's some coherency later on with some other feats. But at level 10, I think this is your bread and butter. Bombs Away is what we were talking about earlier. Hitting a carapace armor, flak armored, or unyielding enemy with your big box of hurt causes it to open, releasing grenades around the target. I did use this for a while. I tested it. I played with it. The damage is crazy. Deals a pile of damage. But I just don't end up using my big box of hurt that often. These other two just come in handy all the time. So if you enjoy it, if you want to do it, do it. It is fun. I will say that. It is a pile of fun. I enjoyed the crap out of using this feat. I've just kind of given it up, put it to the wayside to kind of help my team a little bit more, but it is so much fun. Next one would be Blood and Thunder, +1 bleed stack on heavy melee hit. That's just great. It applies a stack of bleed. Bleed damage just puts a constant tick of small damage on them, which is always good. And it works great with some other stuff that comes up in the Ogryn feat tree, as well as some other builds that other classes use, like the Preacher has a crit build. So if somebody in your party is running that, a bleed build with them, then it works great for them too, which is what started me on it, honestly. We've got a Preacher in our group that runs a bleed build, so comes in handy for him a lot. But moving on from that, our level 15 feats, we have plus 50% coherency radius. It's a good feat. Just makes you get your coherency bonuses easier. It helps a lot if you're going for that one penance where like no kills outside of coherency. It's pretty good. I mean, it's just a good passive feat. Then you got Lead the Charge. When you activate Bull Rush, allies in coherency gain 25% movement speed for 4 seconds. I tested this, I played with this, I played with some friends with it, and honestly, they didn't even really notice the speed boost when they got it. So I'm gonna say this feat, you could go ahead and throw this one out. You could try it with your group, see what they think. But my group, we said nah. This they didn't even notice when I did it. Bullfighter, 10% bull rush cooldown when you or an ally incoherency kills an elite enemy. This is incredible, top tier. I don't even think that these other two, like this one's a pretty good feat, but at the same time, in comparison with Bullfighter, I just don't see it. I mean, you should be in coherency most of the time. Elites pop up all the time. Getting cooldown reduction on your bull rush, especially later on when you get some more feats, it's just better. I did run with both of these for a while, but I'm on Bullfighter now and I'm not coming off. So then we've got our level 20 feats. We've got Bloodthirst. It deals 10%. 10% damage resistance per bleeding enemy in melee range. Stacks up 5 times. That's 50% damage reduction. And now you see why I have Blood and Thunder on there. It just works too great together. Those two together make a very cohesive build. And then you've got Hard as Nails. Is a 25% minus 25% damage taken for each ally currently knocked down or incapacitated. 25% damage reduction. It's pretty good. For each ally, that does max out at 75% if your whole team's knocked down. So that's pretty good. But hopefully your whole team's not getting knocked down all the time. So this seems kind of situational. I don't know if I would pick that, but let's see what the last one is. 100% toughness replenishment while below 25% health. I mean, that's good. I don't know how good. I haven't used it. Essentially, as soon as I got here, I switched to Bloodthirst, and I never came off of it. I put on Bloodthirst, and I put on Blood and Thunder, and I never looked back. You can tell the difference of that 50% damage reduction. But this one, I'm not sure if I'm sure that stacks with your like best form of defense. So that could be there could be an argument to be made with this, because toughness replenishment is of course always good. So that could be a playstyle or a build that would work very well, especially if you're using it with this or with the coherency bonus. It could work well. Then your level 25 feats, you've got Payback Time. When an enemy damages you, gain 20% damage against enemies of the same type. That's pretty good. I mean, it's just bonus damage against anything that hits you. I mean, that's pretty dang good. Knife Through Butter. Fully charged heavy attacks have unlimited cleave. Okay, so this ability looks great on paper. Unlimited cleave, that is, anybody who's watched some of my videos should know I love cleaving through enemies. It's my favorite thing in this game. I will run through and cleave through everything I can get my hands on. The issue I have with this is it says fully charged. I don't know if I have ever fully charged a melee attack in an actual game. I mean, I'm sure I have, but it's really just because I started attacking and then I realized they were too far away, so I just kept charging my attack as I was walking towards them. Which in a horde situation, that's not the case. I would, like I said, I love the thought behind it. I just wish it didn't include that fully charged. Like, that is the issue I'm having with this ability, is being fully charged. Raging Bull is deal 5% damage. Deal plus 5% damage with your next melee hit on melee hit for each enemy hit with the initial attack. So it's essentially the more enemies you hit with the first attack, the more damage you deal with the next attack. Makes cleaving through a bunch of enemies easier, better. It just makes you hit a little harder. As Ogryn, we don't have a whole lot of stuff that makes us hit harder. This one, makes you hit a little harder, especially if you're, constantly attacking us through waves. This one would also be a one to have an argument made for, but I just prefer the guaranteed, no matter what, I'm always getting damage on everything. It doesn't have to be that specific enemy type, So, let's see here, the last one. Level 30. You get Bulgor, which is +2 bleed stacks on enemies hit by Bull Rush, which is fantastic, especially if you're running some of these other ones. If you're running Bloodthirst for their damage reduction, that is great. It's an instant, boom, you got your 50%, you're ready to go. Damage reduction's on. Plus, if you're running with that Preacher that's running the bleed build, boom, everything's bleeding. He's ready to go. It just synchronizes very well. I personally believe best in slot, but there is a definite argument to be made for at least one of these other two. The Unstoppable increases the distance you travel with Bull Rush by 100%, and you cannot be blocked by enemies except monstrosities. Okay, so there's an argument to be made for all of these. That is good. Now, of course, you'd have to be careful with it, not to get yourself out of position too much. Don't charge away from your group off into the middle of nowhere. But if you are away, if you are in the middle of handling the mission and all of a sudden people start dropping and you need to get back, this is a great way to just bull rush through everything. Nothing can stop you unless it's freaking monstrosity itself. Knocking everything out of the way. Extra distance. I mean, that's pretty good. Plus, it's one of the easiest way to get a few of the penances that we have as Ogryns in higher difficulties. So I'm going to end up using it for a little while just to get those penances. But there is argument to be made for that. Is it better than just automatically applying bleed, which is damage and damage reduction? I mean, it's situational, but maybe. It could be. And then there's non-stop violence, which is replenished 10% toughness per Bull Rush hit. I mean, honestly, that's just saying if you're charging through a horde, then you just regenerate all your toughness. Personally, I don't use it for the sheer fact that usually if I'm in a horde that size, then it's easy enough for me to keep up with best of form. But there is argument to be made for that. Like, the damage reduction on top of that, on top of best form of defense, usually keeps me up. But there is an argument to be made for being able to essentially regenerate all your toughness. Which these feats right here, this tree right here is what makes Bullfighter so powerful, is because it makes your Bull Rush so powerful. I mean, it really just kind of sinks into whatever play style you've got. I mean, are you charging off, charging around, applying bleed, regenerating toughness? I mean, it makes your Bull Rush do whatever it is you need it to do, which makes this feat here indispensable. So, finishing off, I'm just going to go ahead and overview my feat build one more time for anybody who might have skipped ahead. Essentially, I use best form of defense, which gives me 20% toughness on hitting multiple enemies. as I said before, for me, it's hard for me to not hit more than one enemy. I mean, you hit two enemies and you get this toughness region. I'll hit two enemies by accident most of the time, even if I'm only trying to hit one. Then using that heavy attack applies bleed stacks, which I mean does extra damage plus gives us damage reduction, as you'll see in just a minute. Bullfighter gives me cooldown reduction on my bull rush every time somebody incoherency with me kills an elite enemy, which happens all the time. Here's that bloodthirsty where you get 10% damage resistance for bleeding enemy in melee range. It stacks up 5 times. That's where bloodthirsty comes in. Then you've got raging bull, just a little extra damage if you're hitting something repetitively. And then you've got Bulgor, which applies 2 stacks of bleed on enemies hit by Bull Rush. So essentially, I mean, you're getting cooldown reduction on your Bull Rush. Bull Rush is applying bleed. Your bleed is giving you damage reduction. Then you can be heavy attacking to get your toughness back and applying more bleed. So to me, this is just the most cohesive build that I've found. And the only thing that doesn't blend in with everything is Raging Bull, which is just bonus damage. So this has been the best build that's worked for me. There may be other builds that work for you, but I hope this kind of shines a light on some of the capabilities of the Ogryn talent tree. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And if you liked this video, maybe you can check out this one over here. Hopefully that'll be something you like too. And of course, I'm trying to keep up with all current content. So if you want to, maybe hit that sub button right here. Turn on some alerts. I'm trying to keep everybody as up to date as I can with patch notes that are coming out and getting more content out on some more of these build videos. So thank you for your support, and as always, stay swampy.